Well, thank you, Dr. Pena, for agreeing to speak with us as we celebrate Latinx and Hispanic Heritage Month. And if you would like to get us started, could you please introduce yourself and tell us how you identify?
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Dr. Abraham Pena. I go by Abe, pretty simple. I'm the executive director of the Center for Academic Access and Opportunity, which houses our first generation and federal TRIO programs, as well as college access initiatives. Yeah, that's just a little bit about me, my position now and how I identify. So I use the pronouns he, him, or in Spanish, él. I identify as a Mexican American. Most, I guess, in terms of other terminology, I would say Latino. Although I know Latinx or Latine are also terms that we've used for more inclusivity in more recent times, and we can definitely have more discussions about all of those different terms later on. But yeah.
Absolutely. Can you tell us what this month and this heritage celebration means to you? Um, so I know that, officially we say Hispanic Heritage Month, but to be inclusive, we also say Latinx Heritage Month. What does this Heritage Month mean to you?
I think for me, it's really important. It's the piece of the identities, right, that I hold that is the most prominent, and that as I've navigated through my career and my education and all of that, is what I've kind of fallen back on. That's the piece of my identity that I'm most proud of, I would say, the one that I attach most meaning to. So having the ability to celebrate in that identity, in that culture, for me means that tie to the family, the remembering those roots, never forgetting where we come from, whatever spaces we occupy. We always take a little piece of our culture, a little piece of our family with us. So for me, it's always been really important that that representation, really matters. So being able to say, oh, there's this Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month, really just speaks to our ancestors, the ability for us to carry forth, some of their legacy and be able to kind of be voices for people that might not have some, right? Or so be able to be those advocates for other people that are not there yet, but they will be hopefully, pushing them forward and serving as those active voices in the community, really.
Thanks. There's no denying that identity impacts one's professional life. How has aspects of your identity as a Latinx, Latine man impacted your career?
Yeah, so I feel like there's always that pressure of I can't fail. I want to be, a good role model for other people. I think for me, being Latino, being the first individual in my family to finish high school, to go to college, then master's degrees, PhD, all this stuff, really does mean a lot. And like I mentioned earlier, as I um, navigated through academia, navigated through my education, the higher education, my professional job, that identity as a Mexican American, that identity as a Latino, really was what pulled me forward, right? That idea that not necessarily that I can't fail, but that supposed to be a role model, an example for other people. Where it presents itself the most, and sometimes it's unexpectedly, is in my own family, right? And seeing some of my really young nephews, even having little like chats and like conversations on Zoom, for example, and being like, "Hi, how's it going?" They're like, "Well, Theo, uncle, well, Theo, I can only give you 5 minutes because I'm studying right now because I want to go be smart like you, or like I want to go get
I
my
love that.
education just like you. So like, don't bother me. I'm busy right now. I'm building my education." And so it's funny things like that where it's like when it was me, it was just me. Like there was nobody else around me in my community, my family that I could use as role models. So being able to now see my little nephews, my niece being like, give me 5 minutes. That's all you're gonna get from me because I'm trying to be studious and I'm trying to be just like you. It really does mean a lot because you don't realize the kind of impact that you have on other people, particularly in your family, that it can be a really quick, one generation change that does a lot.
I often say that as first gen, we have the responsibility of being the first. We don't have the responsibility of being the last. And so it's like, hey, you get everyone started and just bring everyone across and bring everyone along with you. Um, Knowing the role that you have here on campus and being in higher education, what would you say has been the most impactful policy change that you've seen in higher ed for um, folks who identify as Hispanic or Latino, Latinx, um, especially knowing the graduation and retention rate for men of color, especially again, Latino males?
We see, or at least, so for me, I'm wearing my little like McNair Scholars thing here from Suffolk, but I was a McNair Scholar as well. The program helps, undergraduate students who are interested in furthering their study past the bachelor's degree. Doctoral programs. I didn't know what any of that meant back then, but I was really fortunate to kind of be guided through. So I'm just really thankful and grateful to see a lot of programming and initiatives around focusing on these populations, these like diamonds in the rough, this ability to say, just because you come from a different background, or just because you have less likelihood of success according to the data, doesn't mean that you're not going to do it. It doesn't mean that you won't be able to do it. So I take my role very seriously here, at Suffolk, particularly when it comes to making sure that we're not only role models, but we're also like the voices, and we're also serving as examples, to be able to say, if I did it, if I had to struggle through and didn't know anybody, you can definitely do it because now you know me. When it comes to larger kind of initiatives and things like that, I feel that it's tough sometimes, right? Because you want to put resources forth for the population, but you don't always know whether they know about them or what is the best way that they can access them. We see a lot of issues with, for example, like women of color, but particularly Black women, Latina women, kind of accessing some of these spaces. As you mentioned, there's a huge lack of attainment and graduation for Black and brown men. So it's always very interesting for me in whatever space that I can to speak on behalf of some of the Latino men population, and say, I did it, you can do it too. I didn't have a lot of resources. Now you have me, right? Now you have my team. Now you have Suffolk backing you up. So the more that we can be in those spaces and sit at those tables, the better that it is. And I'm really proud to say that at least at Suffolk, I've seen a lot of that inclusivity. And I'm really trying to make a difference about getting students to feel like they're worthy and that they can kind of move forward and succeed.
What would you say has been the impact of social capital and mentorship and sponsorship in your um, career development, and how do you pass on that message of building social capital, mentorship, finding sponsors to other folks within the Latino and Latinx community?
For me, one of the things that was the most important really was finding that initial mentor, right? That professor for my particular situation, who I could see myself reflected in. It is so important to be able to see other people that you can look up to, that you can say, I would like to be like this person. And wow, like I get the privilege of talking to them, of seeing them. While I will say that many of the times, because there's a lot of lack of representation in spaces, we tend to latch onto the same people. And sometimes that becomes a big burden for that person. They might not have the bandwidth to help us, and we cannot discredit the work and the allyship, right, of some of individuals who might not look like us, but are definitely in our corner. And I've had, a lot of people like that in my journey, who have really said, "Hey, I see this light in you. I think you can go farther. Here are the steps to take." So while having an amazing, undergraduate research mentor who became like this big role model for me in the Department of Education there at the University of Texas at Austin, as well as these two amazing women, Latinas, who were PhD candidates at the time, who were, these amazing role models. There was also, the my Asian, the chair of my dissertation committee, who was Asian. He wasn't Latino. There was a this white professor during my PhD career who, when I went and visited, was the one who really convinced me to go to that program, and throughout served this amazing role model. And other people, being able to have those individuals who have stepped in those spaces understand. The best piece of advice I got was, it doesn't matter how you feel, it doesn't matter what you think. All you have to do is observe, learn, and most importantly, learn to juggle things and play the game, right? Because you're moving into these spaces that you don't necessarily understand. So soak it all in and be able to play that game. You have to know how to change the masks that you wear. I'm more professional here. I can be more relaxed here. I can be more myself. I can be this. Never forgetting to be unapologetically yourself, right? But at the same time, being able to say, well, in this particular space, I am not going to act a fool because I am going to get booted out or not respected and things like that. So it was very important for me to be able to be exposed to those individuals to say, now I understand kind of what I'm going to, and being able to say that to my students now and say, hey, everyone, like, you can do it. You just need to be strategic, needs to be strategically visible and visible and learn to play the game.